Welcome to AminAcademy.com. In world history, let us discuss about early Middle Eastern and Northeast African civilization. In that, we'll discuss about ancient Mesopotamia. First of all, we understand civilization. Civilization from the Latin, it means civis, that is citizen, and civitas, city, is a term applied to any society which has developed a writing system, government, production of surplus food, division of labor, and urbanization. The term is difficult to define because not all civilizations include every one of the above facets. The term is often used, therefore, to suggest a highly developed culture is a civilization. Now, by broad sense, we will discuss about what are civilization. The term civilization often elicits mostly idealized images of ancient empires, monumental architecture, and the luxurious lives of ruling classes. Civilization, however, is a tricky term. In the United States, students of history studied Western civilization about exclusively through the 1950s. But in their studies, civilizations were advanced societies with urban centers rooted in European or Middle Eastern culture. In addition to heated debates about exact definition, civilization is a loaded term, meaning that it can contain a value judgment. If you use the term carelessly, it seems to indicate that some societies are deemed civilized and worthy of inclusion, while others are uncivilized and thus not worth our study. For our purpose, let us leave aside any value judgment. Societies labeled as civilizations were not inherently better than any others. In fact, as we will see, civilization demonstrated various vulnerabilities, considering things like war, slavery, and the spread of diseases. There were sometimes advantages to living outside the nexus of civilization. Now, now let us discuss about timeline of ancient Mesopotamia. Now we'll in this video we'll talk about more about Mesopotamia. For that, we'll discuss now timeline of ancient Mesopotamia. Look at here. These are the timeline from starting to end. Now we'll discuss about ancient Mesopotamia. History of ancient Mesopotamia of the region in southwestern Asia where the world's earliest civilization developed. The name comes from a Greek word meaning between rivers. Mesopotamia means between rivers, referring to the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. But the region can be broadly defined to include the area that is now eastern Syria, southern Turkey, and most of Iraq. The region was the center of culture whose influence extended throughout the Middle East and as far as the Indus Valley, Egypt, and the Mediterranean. The Mesopotamia, that is civilization, begins. Ancient Mesopotamia centered is present-day Iraq, occupied a unique place in the history of human culture. It is there around 3400 to 3000 BC that all the key elements of urban civilization first appear in the one place. Cities with monumental infrastructure and official bureaucracies. overseeing agriculture, economic, and religious activities. The earliest known system of writing and sophisticated architecture, arts, and technologies. Development were concentrated in southern Mesopotamia, where the dominant ethnic and linguistic group until 2000 BC was the Sumerians, famous today for their hero king Gilgamesh of Uruk. The treasure found in the royal tombs at Ur and the strikingly beautiful statue of Guduya. For some 3000 years, Mesopotamia remained the preeminent force in the Near East. In 539 BC, however, Cyrus the Great captured Babylon and incorporated Mesopotamia into the Persian Empire. Here, this is a first well writing statue here. The vast majority of cuneiform writing was inscribed on clay tablets, which could also be impressed with a seal that acted like a signature. The hundreds of thousands of texts discovered by archaeologists include royal inscriptions, law codes, treaties, and literature, as well as everyday records such as receipts, contracts, letters, and incantations that reveal the intimate details of Mesopotamian social, religious, and economic life to an extent unmatched by any other ancient culture. In the late 4th millennium BC, the first settlement that clearly qualify as cities emerged in Sumer, that is southern Mesopotamia. Preeminent among these was Uruk, biblical Erich, which by 3000 BC had grown into a walled city of over 2 square miles, which around 100,000 of inhabitants. The early cities of Sumer boasted monumental temples and palaces decorated with statues of gods, kings, and worshippers. They were also centers of innovation and learning, where priests trained in sacred rituals, divination, exorcisms, astronomy, and mathematics, where praise poems and mythological tales celebrating rulers and deities were studies and copied for posterity, and where law courts were created. International treaties were struck and financial contracts were signed. The Sumerians were organized as a patchwork of city-states until around 2340 BC, when Sargons of Akkad established the first true and lasting empire, one that all later Mesopotamian kings would seek to emulate. Now, further, we'll talk about ancient Mesopotamia. Further about details we'll do now. Mesopotamia is located in an area known as the Fertile Crescent. Archaeologists have found some of the earliest known sites of agricultural production in the Fertile Crescent. Although much of this region received little or irregular rainfall, the Tigris and Euphrates rivers provided large amounts of fresh water, facilitating agriculture production and the development of early civilization. These Greeks later recognized the significance of their river system to these ancient societies and referred to the region as the land between the rivers, that is called Mesopotamia. The Tigris and Euphrates rivers both originate in the Taurus mountains of eastern Anatolia and flow southward to empty into the Persian Gulf. The rivers carry the deposit silt downstream, enriching the soil. In general, the richer soil and availability of water in areas that in the north otherwise had little rain or else towards the south had concentrated months of rainfall followed by long dry spells encouraged settlement near the rivers. The people settled near the rivers. Most of the peoples settled near the rivers. The areas closer to the Persian Gulf, known as Lower Mesopotamia in particular, were attractive to earlier settlement because they had extremely fertile soils. People built some of the earliest cities, including Uruk, Eridu, and Ur, the Lower Mesopotamia. While the Tigris and Euphrates rivers did provide water to the region, their foods were unpredictable and could even be catastrophic when they washed away the entire settlement. The rivers offered another benefits to ancient Mesopotamians, just as the rivers were definitely important to meet people's everyday needs for water and agriculture production, so they also facilitated trade. While people made use of local resources like mud to build their homes. In general, Lower Mesopotamia lacked other desired resources, including wood, stone, and precious metals. Traders were able to use the rivers to bring in these resources from Assyria, Anatolia, and Levant, and areas adjacent to the Persian Gulf. Early Mesopotamians also obtained goods from as far away as what today are northern Pakistan and India. Merchants used overland routes that crossed the Iranian plateau and sea routes, exchanging Mesopotamian products like grains and textiles for luxury goods from the east. Royal cemeteries shows that 2500 BCE Mesopotamian elites were buried with a variety of imports, includes beads brought from the Indus River Valley. The rivers and the overland trade routes also facilitated communication and with it, the sharing of ideas and technologies. So far, we discussed about Mesopotamia, ancient Mesopotamia, and on their civilization. We have done. Please subscribe our YouTube channel.